to a small passage, not much larger than a rat hole. She knelt down and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden you ever saw. How she longed to get out of that dark hall and wander about among the beds of bright flowers and those cool fountains, but she could not even get her head through the doorway. And even if my head would go through, thought poor Alice, it would be of very little use without my shoulders. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think I could, if I only knew how to begin. For, you see, so many out-of-the-way things had happened lately that Alice had begun to think that very few things indeed were really impossible. There seemed to be no use in waiting by the little door, so she went back to the table, half hoping she might find another key on it, or at any rate a book of rules for shutting people up like telescopes. This time she found a little bottle on it, which was certainly not here before, said Alice, and tied round the neck of the bottle was a paper label with the words "Drink me" beautifully printed on it in large letters. It was all very well to say "drink me," but the wise little Alice was not going to do that in a hurry. "No, I'll look first," she said, "and see whether it's marked poison or not." For she had read several nice little stories about children who had got burnt and eaten up by wild beasts and other unpleasant things, all because they would not remember the simple rules their friends had taught them, such as that a red-hot poker will burn you if you hold it too long, and that, if you cut your finger very deeply with a knife, it usually bleeds, and she had never forgotten that, if you drink much from a bottle marked poison, it is almost certain to disagree with you, sooner or later. However, this bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to taste it, and, finding it very nice, it had, in fact, a sort of mixed flavour of cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, coffee, and hot buttered toast. She very soon finished it off. "What a curious feeling," said Alice. "I must be shutting up like a telescope." And so it was indeed. She was now only 10 inches high, and her face brightened up at the thought that she was now the right size for going through that little door into that lovely garden. First, however, she waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further. She felt a little nervous about this. "For it might end, you know," Alice said to herself, "in my going out altogether, like a candle. I wonder what I shall be like then." And she tried to fancy what the flame of a candle looks like after the flame is blown out, for she could not remember ever having seen such a thing. After a while, finding that nothing more happened, she decided on going into the garden at once. But alas for poor Alice! When she got to the door, she found she had forgotten the little golden key, and when she went back to the table for it, she found she could not possibly reach it. She could see it quite plainly through the glass, and she tried her best to climb up one of the legs of the table, but it was too slippery, and when she had tired herself out with trying, the poor little thing sat down and cried. "Come, there's no use in crying like that," said Alice to herself, rather sharply. "I advise you to leave off this minute." She generally gave herself very good advice, though she seldom followed it. And sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears into her eyes, and once she remembered trying to box her own ears for having cheated herself in a game of croquet she was playing against herself, for this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. "But it's no use now," thought poor Alice, "to pretend to be two people. Why, there's hardly enough of me left to make one respectable person." Soon her eye fell on a little glass box that was lying under the table. She opened it and found in it a very small cake, on which the words "Eat me" were beautifully marked in currants. "Well, I'll eat it," said Alice, "and if it makes me grow larger, I can reach the key, and if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'll get into the garden, and I don't care which happens." She ate a little bit and said anxiously to herself, which way, holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way it was growing, and she was quite surprised to find that she remained the same size. To be sure, this is what generally happens when one eats cake, but Alice had got so much into the way of expecting nothing but out of the way things to happen that it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go on in the common way. So she set to work and very soon finished off the cake. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 1. Here are the tasks for you. Firstly, I'd like you to look back through the whole chapter. I'd like you to find and list, so you're simply copying down in the words that it says in the actual text in the book, find and list all the clues that Carroll gives the reader that Wonderland is a place where the normal rules of physics do not apply. Secondly, I'd like you to answer, why does Alice follow the rabbit down the rabbit hole? And thirdly, a bit more complicated, I'll talk you through it. How does Carroll show the reader that Alice is innocent? Now, an innocent person is one who does not have experience of something. And the word also means someone who is not guilty of something. And the two definitions are very closely related. Because Alice does not have much experience of her own world and none of Wonderland, she then surely, because of that, cannot be blamed for any mistakes she made. So she is perhaps both innocent in the sense that she is inexperienced and innocent in the sense that she is not guilty of doing anything wrong. And how does Carroll show the reader that she is innocent? Well, you might answer by saying, Alice looks on a bottle to, quote, see whether it's marked poison or not. Through this, Carroll demonstrates her innocence because an experienced person would realize that if someone was trying to poison you, they would be very unlikely to write poison on the bottle. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the quote, see whether it's marked poison or not, and I've explained how that shows that she's innocent. How it shows that she's innocent is that we know that someone who had experience would know that just not being marked poison doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't poison. Okay, now there are other examples in the text as well in chapter 1, and I'd like you to find those quotes and explain those as well. Okay, and then the final task is just to go ahead and read the whole of chapter 2 by yourselves. So I will write out the tasks and post them in the comments. I'd like you to remember to stay safe and wash your hands. And as you're washing your hands, remember we need to wash our hands for long enough to sing happy birthday twice. And today, March the 23rd, is the 40th birthday of everyone's favourite good news comedian, Russell Howard. So sing a happy 40th birthday to him twice as you wash your hands. Why not? Stay safe.